Okay, today's training, we're going to be talking about top federal matchmaking follow-up tasks or tips that you can do to build relationships after you go to an event. Federal agencies, they organize these events, but the success is up to you. You've got to do the work. It's not their job to do the work. Plus, also, they're not going to be with you afterwards trying to follow up with any of the people you want to meet. Matchmaking is the beginning of people that you want to develop relationships with, getting to know you. And people do business with those they know, like, and trust, right? That's a really common phrase. People do business with those they know, like, and trust. They buy from those they know, like, and trust, or if it's a teammate, they work with those they know, like, and trust. Following up on an event, you're going to reinforce in their minds that they do know, like, and trust you. Hopefully that's what you established at the matchmaking event, right? Is that in their minds, they're going to remember, oh yeah, I like Jane. I know her, I like her, I trust her from what I got to know her. And the following up is going to reinforce that message in. So matchmaking can fit into the 7-step process. Let me share a quick graphic here. I teach the 7-step process all the time for federal revenue success. And matchmaking really fits into this area of targeting and outreach, if you will. If you go to a matchmaking event, you're finding the right people, government people or industry, and then you're doing outreach. And that outreach really is at that matchmaking event, you're networking, et cetera. And through that, you're leading into relationships. And because you're doing that, you'll then be able to find opportunities. So when you think about matchmaking events, don't think of it as something that's just one and done, right? You just go there, you attend it, and that's it. No, it's the beginning of a process that's leading to relationships, which will lead to slam dunk opportunities for your company so that you can write winning proposals that will win sales for your company. It all starts with, in matchmaking's event, beginning to talk to people and getting them to know, like, and trust you. So today I'm going to talk about how to follow up after a matchmaking event. I want to cover 3 things, right? I want to cover who you can follow up with. There's a lot of people. I want to talk about how you can follow up, some specific tips for you on what to do and how you can follow up after an event. And the last thing I want to talk about today's training is how you can gain extra visibility by doing some post-event marketing efforts on social media. So that's what we're going to cover today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. And a process goes from A to Z. When you follow the process, you're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you. And when you go to a matchmaking event, you want repeatable, predictable results. That's why you chose to go to the event. And so I want to help you be able to do the activities that will lead to those predictable results. We are going to cover who to follow up with to start, right? And I want you to see this from a big level, because you might think, oh, there's one person, but I actually have 7 different groups of people I want you to keep in mind, right? And so begin to think about that. But I just want to talk about, for 1 second, right? When I was in the Army, I was in a unit called the Rangers, right? Airborne Rangers. And when we would go after the enemy or begin to pursue the enemy, you could walk in their front door, right? That's one way. You could do this frontal attack. We never did that, right? We always looked for other ways to get in. In fact, what we would do is take the least traveled route. So an example is we would come up a steep cliff and then go through thorn bushes and come in the back door to try to attack the enemy because they're not paying attention. Not that government contracting has enemies and foes, but my point is we looked for a different way than the obvious front door. And I want to encourage you to think that same way when you think about many different things in government contracting, but in particular, who do you follow up with? There's not just this front door group of people. There's many other people that you should be following up with. And I want to introduce you to that idea of who you can follow up with. So the first group of people that you can follow up with is the government personnel, anybody that you met at the event who's with the government. These could be people who are at the registration desk and you said hi to, somebody in the networking standing around period that you talked to, or the people across the table when you matchmaked, right? If that's a verb or a word. But when you did the matchmaking at a table, right, there was somebody at the other side. So these are government people you met with. That's one group of people you can follow up with. The second group of people are people who were at this event, but you didn't get a chance to meet them. So an example is if you went to a matchmaking event, let's say there was, I don't know, 20, 25 tables, et cetera, you're only going to get access usually to 3 tables. In order to spread the matchmaking across all the small businesses who are interested, you get 3 tables to pick from usually, right? And so then you've got 20 plus other tables that you didn't go to, 20 other government personnel that you didn't get a chance to meet with. And so that's the second group, government people that were at the event that you didn't meet. And the third group are the government people that you wish you met but weren't at the event. So an example is if I went to a DHS, and I think they're doing it today, if I went to a DHS vendor outreach session or a matchmaking event, and I wanted to meet somebody from CBP or FEMA, but they weren't there, I want to be able to follow up with them. And I'll talk about what follow-up means when they weren't even at the event. But that's the third group of government people. So there's government people you talk to, government people there, but you didn't talk to, and then government people you wish you talked to, but they weren't there themselves. Those are the first 3. The next 3 relate to industry. So industry folks you met. You're doing matchmaking. If you paid attention to the training I did in the past couple of days, because I'm doing 5 days of matchmaking training here, if you paid attention earlier, I introduced you to this idea of the 3-foot rule, right? It's a very common thing in sales. We say, if you're within 3 feet of somebody, say hello. And it's really important, by the way, practice that at the grocery store. When you're there, you're in self-checkout, and there's people before and behind you or something, say hello. Get used to saying hello to people. But anyways, so when you're networking at a matchmaking event, those are the people you met, industry personnel that you've actually said hi to, maybe traded cards, maybe traded LinkedIn connections, by the way. If you haven't done that, make sure you do that when you're at an event. So that's the first group of industry people. The second group are industry folks who were serving the agency that you wish you met. And so similar to the government folks, these are small businesses, let's say, or large, but small businesses who serve FEMA or CBP, but they weren't at the event. I wish they were there. I wish I could have introduced myself and met them. Well, I'm going to follow up with them as well. And it seems odd. How can you follow up with somebody who wasn't at the event? Well, this is that ranger tactic that I talked about. Don't just go through the front door. Look for other doors to go through. And I'll talk about how to do that in a second. And so the third way on the industry side is to ask for the organizers for an attendee list. Who attended this event? Get a whole list of everybody who was there. If you went to an event, would you be okay with the government handing your contact information out to all the other attendees? I just did a poll on LinkedIn, and I think I'm close to 300 respondents in that poll, and 99% of the people say, yes, absolutely, I want to share that information. And so the more we can get the government to do that, some agencies do it automatically, some are a little hesitant, but either way, ask for the attendee list. And now you've got a list of other small business representatives, maybe even government people who showed up and who are on the attendee list. So that's the third group of industry type people you want to reach out to. By the way, that information can be got through a FOIA request. Somebody was saying that, and I apologize, I can't remember who said this. I think it was John, might have been John Barker, can't remember. But a couple of days ago saying that you can get this information through a FOIA request. And if you can get it through a FOIA request, then you can probably get it through just asking. And so follow up with your small business professional, ask them about that. They can help you kind of get that. So I talked about government people, I talked about, or agency people, let's say it, and then industry. And the seventh group of people, or the seventh person that you want to reach out to is the PCR. So the Small Business Administration has somebody whose job title is Procurement Center Representative, or PCR. So these PCRs, their job fundamentally is oversight into certain set of agencies. And a lot of different PCRs, they all got a certain set of responsibilities. You're able to look on SBA's site and find out who has responsibility for DHS, as an example. I was using that today. So I would want to reach out and follow up with the SBA's PCR. Whether they were there or not, I don't care. I want to follow up with them, right? And so I'm going to talk about that in a second. But if I missed any that you can think of, put it in the chat. Let me know. Okay, so let me talk about how do you follow up after a matchmaking event, specific tips on following up to these 7 groups of people I recommend you talk to. 3 groups of people in the government side, the agency, 3 on industry, and 1 is SBA's PCR. So the first way to follow up, and the first 2 I want to talk about are just tools, right? You can follow up with an email. So if you got somebody's business card, you got their contact information, feel free to reach out to them and follow up with an email, right? And I'll talk for a second about what you could put in the email messaging. But you can follow up with an email, or you can follow up on LinkedIn. When you follow up on LinkedIn, the process begins with you just visiting their profile. In fact, what I would recommend you do is consider visiting their profile first. Give it a day or 2, right? and maybe even visit it once a day for 2 or 3 days. The reason is because LinkedIn will tell that other person that you have viewed their profile. I was talking to somebody recently and they said, hey, this person has visited my profile almost every day. We're able to see that if we're interested in looking. The second stage of following up on LinkedIn is to follow somebody. So LinkedIn has this ability. You can hit a button and say, I want to follow this person. I want to pay attention to anything they say or they're doing on social media so I can hear what's going on. They won't know what I'm doing because they haven't chosen to follow me yet, but I will be able to follow them. That's what follow means. But when you follow, they will get a message now. So when you view their profile, you're just in this list of other people who have viewed their profile. But when you follow, a message goes into their notification saying, hey, John Smith has just started following you. Maybe you should say hello. Maybe you should check out his profile, etc. And so now you're on their radar more and you're following up, you're engaging. And then the third stage on LinkedIn is connecting. And connecting is where you're trying to encourage them to pay attention to what you're sharing on social media, the same way you're paying attention to what they're sharing. So a connection is basically a two-way follow. So those two methods of reaching out are perfect for following up after an event. Yes, you're going to get on a phone call, but that typically tends to be more of a meeting. So let me give you 4 examples of what you could say when you follow up with somebody. And I might go back and look at that first slide to see if I missed any examples. But the first one is just great to meet you, right? Hey, it was great to meet you at the event. If you talked with them, you want to kind of reference what you talked about. And today's training is not about the meat of the messages, right? That's something separate. But just being able to say, hey, it was great to meet you at the event. I'd love to connect on LinkedIn if you're open to it. It's one of my favorite lines, right? Is to say, if you're open to it. I'm giving the other person an out. I'd love to have a meeting with you. If you're open to it, I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. If you're open to it, right? It's basically saying, am I catching you a good time? Are you interested in this? And so the first way you can follow up, first messaging, is really to reference that event and reference the fact that you talked to the other person. If you did matchmaking, I'm hoping I don't need to give you a lot of guidance there because you sat down and you actually talked to the other person for 15 minutes. That was a business meeting, a sales meeting. You should basically be sending them meeting minutes, not massive details, but a little bit of a recap saying, hey, here's some of the things we talked about. Here's what we said action items were going to be. You were going to check on this. I was going to get you an updated capability statement, whatever. But anyways, whoever you meet at the event, that's a perfect way to reach out to them initially after the event, and do that the very day or the next day. Great to meet you at the event. The next one is you can follow up by saying, I thought you'd value seeing this. And this, again, tends to be for people you talk to. So if I talk to somebody, a teaming partner, et cetera, I might say, hey, I just saw this org chart from CBP. I know you were talking about getting in there and I am. Well, here's an org chart they just released, right? That my team and I noticed or something, or I was on LinkedIn. I saw it. You don't want to spam them with helpful information. But if there's something tied to what you talked about, getting that to them would be good. For the federal government people, for the agency personnel, if you've got maybe a video or something that introduces what your company does, or if you've got something like top 10 tips for agencies as they migrate to cloud, something like that. I thought your program offices might be interested in this. Sally, let me know. But somehow thinking about providing them value, just giver's gain is what it's called, giving without expectation. I'm not giving this to set up a meeting. I'm just giving this to you because I thought maybe you'd value getting it. So the fourth one is, and this is where we begin to go into those people I want to meet, but they weren't at the event. It could be the government person that I wish was there from FEMA, or it could be that small business I'd love to work with. It could be them, right? And so I could reach out to them with a, sorry, I missed you, right? And this message is, look, I was at the DHS event yesterday, and I'm sorry I missed you. I was hoping you were going to be there, and I was hoping I was going to see you at the event, but I wasn't able to see you at the event. And actually, I got to pause for a second to correct myself. I'm combining two things I want to talk about. The sorry I missed you at the event, that's for people who were at the event, but you didn't talk to, right? So you remember those other 20 people who were doing matchmaking. That's the one you want to say there. Sorry, I missed you at the event. I was trying to get to your table, but there's a lot of people who are trying to get to your table. I'd love to follow up if you've got 15 minutes, and separately we can get on a phone, et cetera, right? So you want to follow up to those people you wish you could have met. By the way, just because some organization, agency, or nonprofit or whatever does matchmaking and they only give you 3 slots, Doesn't mean those are the only three. Go look at everybody else and decide who's going to be there and whether you want to meet them. Go find their name, number, and email and say, hey, I'm going to be at the event. I'm not doing matchmaking with you. I'd love to connect early and just talk with you for 10 or 15 minutes, quick intro. If they're going to the matchmaking event, they're open to meeting small businesses, right? So reach out, be really respectful of their time and of them, right? But you can reach out. So anyways, the people who are at the event that you didn't get a chance to talk to, you follow up with a sorry, I missed you at the event. That fourth messaging that I want you to send are for people like FEMA who wasn't there, or that business who wasn't there, but you wish you could have met. You write them a message that says, hey, I hoped I would have seen you at the event, right? I didn't, you weren't able to be there or whatever, for whatever reason, but I'd love to have a, quick 15-minute call and just introduce myself. But just by saying, I had hoped to see you at the event, you're kind of borrowing, we call this borrowing credibility of that event. So DHS just hosted this event. I wish I would have saw you at the event. I understand you're probably really busy. I'd love to get on your calendar for a 15-minute introduction call, right? They either are going to or they're not. When you do this kind of follow-up, it's no big deal. There's this rule I have, and I put it in my joke book, right? But some will, some won't, so what? Not everybody is going to respond to your messaging. Not everybody who responds is going to say, oh, sure, let's set up a meeting. But some will, some won't, so what, right? So pay attention to the ones who will. But when you reach out and you say, I hoped I would have seen you at the event, that's a great way to meet businesses that are already doing work in there. I might look into FPDS and find a bunch of businesses who are doing $10 million a year, for example, at DHS, because I'd love to subcontract with them. I might find them and then find the business owners and then reach out to them if I wasn't able to see them at the event. And that's a great way to begin to start doing relationships. And it's a good outreach message. There's a lot of ways to outreach to them, by the way. I'm just using the matchmaking path that goes in. So the last thing I want to talk about is how you can get visibility both with teammates and in industry and government personnel by promoting the event after you gain visibility. So let me just come in here and talk about 4 or 5 quick ways that you can do this. But primarily what I'm talking about is getting on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really the only social media platform where you can post content out there that will be seen by industry and teammates more than anywhere else, or excuse me, industry and agencies more than anywhere else. And so you want to be on LinkedIn, sharing some comments or engaging in one way or another with posts or posting your own stuff. So the first tip I have for you is just monitor after the event, or even during the event, monitor for people talking about DHS's event. I talk about how today, and today is May 4th, 2023, DHS is having an event, and I hope it's today. But either way, they're having an event today, right? I would go into Darlene Bullock, who's the OSDBU for DHS and is promoting this herself on LinkedIn. And I would go in and look at the people who are giving her a thumbs up. And then I would look at their profiles to see, are they posting content about, hey, I'm going to be there, that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, I'd love to see you there. Or following up and saying, sorry, I missed you. How'd it go? I loved the event. Darlene, they did a great job. But the idea is to comment and engage, thumbs up, on any social media posts that are out there that are referencing the event you just went to. Remember, you don't want to just go and forget about it. You go to the event, you prepare to go to the event, you attend the event, and then you do post activity. And that is getting the true value out of matchmaking, not just 15 minutes when you sit down. So think about engaging that way on comments. The next thing you can do is actually create your own content and put it out. And you don't have to work overly hard at this. You have to get used to it if you haven't done it. But an example is you could share lessons that you learned. Hey, top 3 things I learned from this event. I went to this event and I listened to the general session and they were talking. Here was 3 things I learned. Hey, here's 3 big opportunities that are coming out. You can do a couple of different posts. LinkedIn won't care. If you post today and you post tomorrow, it'll still share it out with the network. Maybe you're not going to get a ton of views if you don't do a ton of posting right now, but guaranteed you're going to get some visibility. And you just make a point of, in every one of them, just thanking DHS, right? You learn how to use LinkedIn and tag DHS or tag the people who organize the event. Maybe you can sit there and if you've got 3 lessons from the actual person you sat down with. Hey, I sat down with CBP today. This is what I learned, right? If you can share some of that stuff, you've got a couple of things going on. You're getting visibility out there to the industry and to the agencies who are tracking on this. The people who hosted the event are going to be very appreciative, and other people who maybe are in DHS looking for somebody like you or looking to get into DHS, you're now building that visibility where they're starting to know you, right? Know, like, and trust you is what we need in order to buy from you or to work with you. Well, you're starting to get us to do that by posting content on LinkedIn. So it's a great way to do it. Going along with this whole thread of social media on LinkedIn, I talked about today is DHS's event, and Darlene Bullock has been posting about it, and so have other DHS people. Go find them on their own profiles, in their own content where they're promoting these events. Get in there and thank them for the event. Thank the organizers. I appreciate you bringing this to industry. Some events suck. Some of them are really, really good. It doesn't matter. Go in and thank them. The people who organize the events, whether they're not that good or whether they're great, they work just as hard to bring it to us. So go in there and thank them. They will appreciate it. And I guarantee you, not many people do that thanking. So do that on their original post. On a separate post, you can put a post out that's separate from the lessons learned, but you can put a post out that just says, thank you. Thank you to DHS for putting on this event. I got a lot of value from the event, blah, blah, blah. You can tag a couple of people, say thank you. And it gets visibility. It gets you visibility in DHS, and it gets you visibility in the industry. So the last tip I have for what you could do at an event, if it's an in-person event, this tip is for, really a lot of them are probably in person too, but take pictures of exhibitor booths. Some of these events where there's matchmaking events like Navy Gold Coast, right? They have a huge exhibit hall and conference stuff and matchmaking. So go around to the exhibit booths and get to know them, talk to them, and ask them if you can take a selfie. And I don't know if you can say a selfie when there's more people in, but take a selfie of you and somebody working the booth and the booth. That way you're able to, and you tell them, look, I'd like to take a picture, and then share it out on LinkedIn and tell people, hey, I just visited your booth. Can I do that, right? And then when you share it out, you've got so much traction to get visibility out there. First off, the person in the booth is going to love it because you're giving them free marketing out there, right? If they say it's okay to take a picture and share it out, then you're giving them free marketing. And now you're borrowing any kind of credibility with their network. You want to tag the person who's in the picture with you, tag the company for the booth. And when you put it out, you're not just going to your network. Now you're going to their network, and their friends, their connections are engaging with it. If you do that with multiple exhibit booths, then you're going to get visibility out there. Don't do a ton, right? But do let's say 5 or something. If you do 5 and you post them over several days, don't do a lot of posts in one day, but if you do them over several days, then the visibility is out there. And again, you can tag the organizers of the event, even when you're shouting out the exhibit booth saying, hey, just wanted to say thanks to the organizers who organized this event so I could see company XYZ in their booth. Anyways, hopefully that makes sense. This is promoting an event afterwards to be able to get the visibility that'll help you get the most out of a matchmaking event. The success you have from matchmaking events is gained long after you do the actual event, right? It's not in the 15 minutes you sit down at the event. It's the relationships that you're building and maintaining when you come out of it. And so I want to make sure that you have a plan in place. If you want success, right, make sure you have a plan in place before the event for following up. That way you're proactive in your follow-up activities and you're not reactive. Does that make sense? Have that plan of how you're going to follow up, how you and your team are going to follow up. It will make you proactive after the event rather than reactive and bothered by the activity. So if you found value in today's training or any of my trainings, become a sustaining member today. When I'm done with this matchmaking, I got one more tomorrow, but when I'm done with this matchmaking session, I'm going to put it together in a mini course within the sustaining membership library. So the replays will be available for people, but I'll build it as a course with some handouts, et cetera, for sustaining members. If your company is already making money, you're doing $1 million, $2 million, whatever, and you want to go to the next level, consider our 90-day BD Accelerator workshop. If you're interested in learning more about this, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. And remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.